Welcome to the latest edition of Real Grass, Real Heroes. A look at the golden age of sports in Boston. My name is Jim Tuberosa, and we are honored today to have what I consider one of the best, the greatest Bruins hockey players of recent time, Rick Middleton. Ricky,
pleasure
got to
to
shake
be here.
your hand.
Thank you.
But thank you so much for being here. You know, I've got a million questions that I want to ask you, and I don't even know where the heck to start. But
we got lots of time.
Oh my God, we got so many things to talk about. You know, I started looking through the record book, you know, the Bruins media guide,
Right.
and I found stats that I never really knew existed. You know, I don't know why you're not in the Hall of Fame, to tell you the truth. I'm not being patronizing. But
Well, I appreciate that.
I look over here in the playoff points. There's only two guys ahead of you, Bork and Esposito. You're first in the fewest penalty minutes. And by the way, you got to tell me the story about the Lady Bing.
No, I'll tell you that a little later.
More points, players that have played over 400 games for the Bruins, more points than games played. I think there's only three guys that compare to you, and there's only about seven in the history of the Bruins that do it. You're third in goals scored with 402. Only Busick and Espo ahead of you, and in assists, I think you're fourth behind Bjork, Espo, and Bobby.
But we didn't win a cup. That's the Hall of Fame looks at that. Believe it or not, not with everybody, but it certainly adds to your resume if you win a Stanley Cup. I went to three finals, lost them all. Two to Montreal and one to Edmonton.
Oh, please.
Yeah.
The one to Montreal. Too many men on the ice?
Well, that was the semifinals. See, when I got traded from the Rangers in '76, the year before in '75, the only year in my career I never made the playoffs with the Rangers. And the next year, we went to the finals in '76, '77, and '77, '78 against Montreal, losing 4 games to nothing, and then 4 games to 2. And then '79 was a too many men on the ice. That was a semifinal. And if we had won that game, I scored with 4 minutes to go up 4-3. And 2 minutes to go, too many men, 1 minute to go, Lafleur scored, and we lost it in overtime. We would have played the New York Rangers, my old team, for the Cup. And I was looking so forward to that. But
that would
it never
have
happened.
Been something else.
Never happened.
Would have been something else.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it seems when they talk about rivalries between teams, you know, the Red Sox, Yankees, and so on and so forth, it's always the Bruins and Montreal. Why do people forget about the Bruins and the Rangers?
Well, just the realignment of divisions. I think back when it seemed like every other year you were in a different division, and as they were expanding and bringing teams in, but the Montreal rivalry lasted throughout the '70s, and rivalries are born in the playoffs. And what happened was they just always seemed to end up against each other in the playoffs, and luckily in the finals many times. And maybe not luckily for the Bruins, because the Bruins had never beat Montreal in a playoff series for 45 years. Really, in the 2 years they won the Cup in '70 and '72, somebody else beat Montreal out. Bruins never played them. Finally, in 1988, my last year, was the year we finally beat them out. First time in 45 years in a playoff.
I remember that too. We all got drunk.
Well, I know I did.
You know, with of course Derek Sanderson had the 2 nightclubs in Boston, and Gino Capoue had the Point After, and all you guys, especially the Bruins and the Patriots, were always, you know, milling around town.
Well, that was the era in those days of the guys would go play the game and then they go out to the clubs. And I was fortunate because Derek and I played together in New York in '74, and he brought me to Boston that summer, and I got to meet a lot of people that he knew in Boston. Little did I know I was going to get traded here. And 2 years later, I ended up getting traded to Boston, so I already knew people up here. And it made the transition a lot easier for me.
Was that trade a shock? It was a genius move by Harry.
I had heard rumors, and what happened was in '75, the big trade was Phil Esposito and Vadnais for Brad Park and Jean Rattel going to Boston. And from what I heard, you know, hearing about it years later, Espo wanted one of his old wingers, either Cashman or Hodge, and I guess they settled on Kenny. And they really didn't like my lifestyle in New York. I was a young 21-year-old kid, maybe enjoying the nightlife of New York a little too much to their liking, and they decided to trade me to Boston. And as I said, I went from not making the playoffs to the Stanley Cup Finals 2 years in a row, and then playing 12 years and meeting Don Cherry. So that was
Grapes.
yeah.
God bless him.
Yeah, it was never the same after he left.
Yeah,
trust
that's
me.
the truth. But of course, Kenny Hodge was a big favorite here.
Oh, sure.
And you coming from took the sting
we played
out of
together
us
on the
losing
alumni
him.
team.
Yeah. Isn't he a great guy?
Oh, he's
There's an awful lot of you guys that weren't originally from Boston, and not just in hockey, especially in hockey and football. Like Gino Cappelletti comes to mind immediately. But guys from out of town that come to Boston to play and then stayed for the rest of their lives.
Well, I was fortunate enough to play 12 years in Boston, and probably one of the only good things that comes out of not having free agency is the fact that you don't have much movement. You can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And if you're fortunate enough that you don't get traded, you can make a home somewhere, and that's what I did.
Terrific. You married a Boston girl?
Actually, no. I married a woman from Quebec. I've been married twice. My first time, and the second one was a Boston girl down in Hull, Boston Irish.
Yeah.
And so I have two sons from my second marriage and a daughter from my first. Yeah.
You're terrific. Yeah. How did you feel about that trade when it happened?
Well, I had heard, it was funny. I went to the airport. The season had ended, and I went to the airport to pick up some buddies from Toronto, and they're the ones that told me they had heard it on the news in Toronto, being a hotbed of hockey up there. And I had not heard it in New York, so I just kind of brushed it off. And it was about a week later it happened. I got a phone call. I was moving houses because we rented in those days. I was only 21. And I was moving houses, and I got a message at the house I was moving into that John Ferguson, he was the coach of the Rangers in those days, and was looking for me, maybe just to check to see if I was still alive. I don't know, but he got hold of me, and he said, "We're thinking of trading you to the Bruins. We're not going to make the trade unless we're told, blah, blah, blah." But I think they just wanted to make sure they got hold of me, and then they called and made the trade. And that was, I think that was about June, and I spent the summer in Long Island, and then came up to Boston and went to training camp in September. And met Don Cherry for the first time.
What was the difference? Was there any difference between playing for the Bruins or the Rangers?
Well, the Rangers, when I first got there with Neil Francis, and you remember the Bruins and the Rangers played for the Cup in '72, so they still had good team. I couldn't crack the lineup in '73. They sent me to Providence, Rhode Island in the American League. I played for the Providence Reds. Very first year, they built the Civic Center there. But then the second year, they dismantled the whole team. They fired Emile Francis. They got rid of Eddie Jockman. Got rid of a lot of these old Cup guys. And it was a year of transition for the organization. 3 different coaches, and that basically I think led to the changing and the trading of me, because they brought Espo in and they wanted one of his old wingers. So in a roundabout way, it really was good for me having Espo go to New York.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
of course, everybody was heartbroken when Bobby, left the Bruins.
Right.
But some of the moves that Harry made were like genius moves.
Well, I mean,
Brad Park,
there was some great trades, and Cam Neely. I mean, I wasn't all for it.
Later, yeah.
I wasn't for it. I mean, Barry and I had many good years together with the Rangers, with the Bruins. Yeah, he was my centerman, Barry Peterson. Yeah. And Barry had a fibroid cyst that he got operated on in his arm, and when he came back, they only put us back together for about a week, and then the rumors were around that he was going to get traded, and then they traded him to Vancouver for Cam Neely. And at the time, the Vancouver Canucks were only using Cam as a fourth-line winger. He hardly ever played.
Imagine that.
And I was like, how can they trade Barry Peterson for Cam Neely? But apparently a lot of the Bruin scouts had seen him play junior. They knew what he had. I guess the Vancouver Canucks didn't know what he had, the potential, and never used him in that way. So that turned out to be a great score for the Bruins.
Sure, Harry knew what he was doing. Harry's taken a lot of flack through the years naturally, but I have an idea that there's a lot more to what meets the eye about Harry. I think Harry's been a genius in several times. Of course, I can't even comment on Bobby leaving the team. But maybe you can give us some insight into Harry Sinden.
Well, Harry is a little bit of an enigma. He, being the general manager, didn't have a lot of contact with him. The agents did a lot of the contract negotiations and stuff. And Harry and I had certain things that we talked about and had to deal with each other. And as far as I'm concerned, he was always fair to me. If there's something that I didn't like was the way that I left Boston. I had an option year left on my contract. I was 12 points short of 1,000, and they still had to pay me 2/3 of the contract. So, I should have just told them I would have played for 2/3.
Yeah, you would say
and then I probably
yeah.
could have stayed and got my 12 points, got 1,000, and which was important to me then. I mean, now it really doesn't matter over 20 years later. But.
Well, there's several times in other sports where management has done things for the individual player. We even go back to Doug Flutie a few years ago. When Belichick let him come in to drop kick the extra point.
Sure, yeah.
Something like that, get him into the record books. And of course, the Red Sox brought Nomar Garciaparra back for one day.
Right.
And they brought
well,
back
no,
Carlton
if the management
Fisk.
wants to do it and they think that highly of an individual player and what he did for an organization, then they certainly can do it. At the time, I could tell that in the last year because all of a sudden I wasn't in one of the first two lines. I was on a third line checking line. I wasn't playing the power play. I didn't get the ice time that I was used to getting. So I'd seen it happen to a lot of my teammates, and now I knew it was happening to me. But I was certainly hoping that I could play one more year, but it just didn't work out that way.
Yeah. There's something I got to ask you. I wasn't even thinking about this before, but there aren't a lot of players. When I was a kid, everybody had a nickname. If somebody said Dommy, it was Dom DiMaggio. Right. And by the way, back in the 40s, if you said Bobby, it was Bobby Dorr, not Bobby Orr. And of course, Teddy Ballgame, so on and so forth. But now, when Bobby Orr came, you just say Bobby. You know who it is. Espo. It's Espo.
Yeah, Bobby never had a nickname. Some people called him God, but
well, you know all the jokes that go on about that. But how did you get the nickname Nifty? Not how did you get it? I know how you got it, but who was it that gave you that nickname?
I honestly, tell me, because I don't know exactly. Jerry Cheevers always said he was the first one to call me Nifty. And I'm not sure whether he read it in the paper, in a newspaper article, or he dreamed it one night, or I'm not sure how he came up with it. But Jerry always took credit. And, I had other nicknames. Nifty wasn't really one of my favorites at the time, but it was the one that stuck.
Yeah.
And now I kind of like it. I mean, even when I was doing Nesson for the 5 years I was on there, everybody called me Nifty, and Captain Tappan would say Nifty. So a whole younger generation of hockey players started knowing me as Nifty. So I even got young kids coming up to me calling me Nifty now. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's good. What were the other nicknames?
I'm not going to tell you that. We left those in New York.
But like Derek Sanderson. And I know you were friendly with Derek Sanderson. I would love to see you play with Derek.
Today.
No kidding. Yeah. Oh, my God. Back in the late 60s, early 70s, I'm one of the guys that used to hang around Daisy's.
Sure.
We'd sit on, and Derek would be sitting there on that stool with the cushion on it, for his back. And got some great stories. He was a terrific guy. I hated to see him go.
Derek could give you the shirt off his back. He was one of the greatest guys. And when he got to New York, I was first round draft pick my rookie year, and it was only 2 years after the Rangers and Bruins played for the Cup, and a lot of those guys still hated him. If you remember, I think he took Rod Gilbert's jersey off and threw it in the stands. And Eddie Jocham, and he terrorized. And so a lot of those guys really didn't like Derek. And Derek, by his own admission, would say he was kind of obnoxious. He was kind of brash. But he took me kind of under his wing and really put the press on me as a first-round pick, and because they were always coming to him for a bite after the game, and something says, and he put them over on me. So he really did me a lot of good in New York at getting the spotlight put on me, and it helped me later in my career. Yeah,
that's true. We always liked him. Of course, he was Rookie of the Year the year after Bobby came.
Yeah, well, you don't see characters like that in the game anymore.
I know.
That's what the game has lost, I think.
My God.
Yeah.
Keith Magnuson. That's the name I was trying to think of.
God rest his soul.
I didn't know that he had died.
Died in a car accident several years ago.
With
Rob Ramage in a car.
When we were talking about Don Orey being nicknamed the Boston Strangler.
Yeah.
And he got into a fight with Keith Magnuson and grabbed him by the jersey. Yeah. And as he pulled him forward, he hit him a quick 6-inch uppercut.
Right.
And as he's hanging on to the jersey with that, the Orey smile, Magnuson just slumped to the ice, and everybody called him the
Maggie,
Boston
you know, in a lot of the fights I'd seen, didn't win them, but he always showed up.
Yep.
And that was the thing, you know. He fought a lot, but I don't think he won too many.
Every now and then he would get into it with Derek Sanderson.
Oh, yeah. And I saw Bobby fight him one night, too. Yeah.
Yeah. But, and of course, there was Pie McKenzie. Well, you didn't play with Pie McKenzie, but he was the guy that would start the fights and then take off. You know, and Cash would jump in there. And
well, that's why they called them the Big Bad Bruins.
Yeah.
You know, they're just a lot of guys that were tough, and they knew how to play hockey. And they had a great balance there. And I think that's what Philadelphia did. They looked at the Bruins, and they said, we want to be like them, and that's how they ended up winning the Cup in '73.
Broad Street Bullies.
They knew they had to be tough, and they knew they had to have talent, and they put together a group and get great goaltending with Bernie Perrant. So I think they patterned their team after the Bruins.
A former Bruin, Bernie Perrant.
Sure, Reggie Leach too.
Yep. Yeah. But you know, I'm remembering back to those days. It was like there were two different, maybe even three different. I want to call them cliques, but they weren't really cliques. They were just like groups of personalities, like Derek Sanderson and those guys, and then there was Esposito and Hodge, and I believe, I've been told, that everybody thought Johnny Busick was the chief. Of course, he was the boss, but I've been told it was really Eddie Johnston was the boss.
Well, I didn't play on those teams. Chief was the captain, but you know, probably the captain in certain respects. Yeah. But there's always a guy on the team that other guys look up to, and Eddie might have been that guy also.
He kept everybody in line. It was like one great big family.
Not very often is it your second goalie that does that. But Eddie was a strong personality, and still with the Pittsburgh Penguins organizations. He's been in hockey his whole life.
Yeah, and of course we had Eddie Westfall, you know, and then in expansion, I think Harry left him unprotected, never expecting anybody would pick him up. Right. But they did. But
and he's made a great career as a sportscaster in the island. After going to the Islanders to play, he stayed there, and you know, so it's funny to find out where the guys got to after their careers.
I know, but you know, I'm trying to remember some of the guys from the Big Bad Bruins that you did play with. Rick Smith. Oh, I'll take them one at a time.
I could name them for you. Dallas Smith and Rick Smith, both on defense.
Okay.
They were the holdovers.
You did play with Dallas.
Jerry Cheevers was still there. Gary Doak was still there. Donnie Marcotte and Greg Shepard and Bobby Schmutz. They were all in the same line. It was a great line.
I don't know if they was Schmutz, so they came.
Well, he might have come after. He was there before I was, but not on the Cup team. You're absolutely right. And
on the Big Bad Bruins.
There weren't Wayne Cashman for sure. It was there. My all-time favorite Bruin, Cash.
Oh, Wayne
Captain Cash. Always talk like John Wayne.
That left hand of his was unbelievable.
Always talk like John Wayne, and I didn't find out till just a year or two ago. His middle name is Wayne. John Wayne Cashman.
Is that right?
That's right. He always talked like John, The first time I get to training camp, I'm walking in the lovely Holiday Inn in Fitchburg, Mass. I'm walking down the hall, and the door's open, and I hear, hey! And I turn around, and I look in. Here's Cash sitting there with his cowboy boots on, drinking a beer. And he's, come on in. So I go in and have a couple of beers with him. I haven't even got to my room yet, and I think, I'm going to like this team. And it turned out to be true. It was a great bunch of guys, and we were very close, and we came very close to winning the Cup together.
A big happy family, but it was such a shame that it did break up. But of course,
well, WHA did it. They were offering more money, and in those days, you got to take the money. You got to, and it broke up a dynasty, unfortunately, or I don't believe Philly would have won the Cup, and the Bruins would have been as strong as they were in '72. They would have been tough to beat for years.
Yeah, I agree. But one of the guys that you mentioned, how do you like this? I was just going to ask you about one of the guys, and I totally forgot. I get so many questions that I want to ask you about all these guys, but. Anyhow, Jerry Cheevers.
Yeah.
Now you played with him.
I played with him. I played under him. He was a coach for 5 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cheesy really, when he came in the early '80s, really went to me as one of his go-to guys. After learning the game, the NHL game, through Don Cherry and attrition and all the ups and downs he and I had, by the time Cheesy came in, excuse me, I was playing. He put me out there in power play, penalty killing, end of periods, last minutes, double shifting, stuff. I was playing 25 minutes a game. So I credit him for letting me raise my game even to another level, because without that ice time, it's hard to do it.
And you never had any serious injuries?
Through those years, I only missed like 5 games in 6 years or something. And then in '86, I got a puck in the head in practice. I got a blood clot in the brain and had a seizure, they told me.
Wow.
They put me on Dilantin, and the medication screwed me up. I started hyperventilating. I didn't know, though. They wouldn't let me get rid of the medication, so I missed the rest of that year. But I came back, and luckily it was fine after that.
Wow. You know, something that I was surprised when I realized it after looking through the record book and everything, and I had forgotten that you did win a Lady Byng, but 124 penalty minutes, that's like about, 10 a year.
Yeah, I know.
You know?
Well, people ask me that, and I say, well, somebody had to kill him off. I mean, we had, Terry O'Reilly and John Winsink and Stan Jonathan and Mike Mulberry and Al Secord and all these guys, that, they really didn't have to rely on me to fight. So I decided I'd go the other way, and I'd kill the penalties off and be on the ice all the time, because that's what I enjoy doing the most.
Sure.
And, but the funny story, I got nominated for the Lady Byng 3 times. I won it once. Gretzky, I think, won it the year before, and Mike Bossy won it the year after, because I was a presenter. But I told you, I'll make this a quick story, that I don't have the trophy today because I was at Pebble Beach in 1982, right before the U.S. Open. Golf was there, and playing out there. And they called me a week before, and they said, you won the Lady Byng. Can you come to Montreal to accept the trophy? I said, I can't. I'm in Pebble Beach. And I'm going to Las Vegas for the Holmes-Cooney fight at Caesars Palace. I'd love to come back. Thank you very much. I'm honored. But I can't make it. And I'll see if my mom and dad could go. So that's what happened. They went and accepted the trophy for me. I wish I was there to see the speech my dad gave, because he was nervous as hell.
Yeah.
But so 2 weeks later, I'm in Toronto, and I pick up my trophy, and I go to, and it's a little plaque. I thought, that's
You're
weird.
kidding.
No, I said, I got nicer trophies than Pee Wee. So I thought, maybe they're giving this little dinky trophy to me because I never showed up in Montreal, and they figured they'd, give me one to leave.
Yeah.
So I take it home, and I'm showing somebody one day, and it's got that, you know how you play table hockey and a puck? Had one of those little pucks in it, and it said NHL, and the puck fell out. So I threw it in the garbage, and I don't have it today. Because all these years, I thought that the NHL said, screw him, he didn't show up to accept it, we'll give him this little dinky plaque. So the story doesn't end there, though. A couple of years ago, when the All-Star Games in Montreal, I ran into Rod Langway, and we were having a beer, and I was telling him the story. And he goes, 82, he says, that was the year I won the Norris. He goes, yeah. He says, I got one of those little plaques, too. I said, you're kidding me. He says, yeah, that's the last year the NHL gave like crappy little plaques. The next year they gave big trophies. I said, I know. I was a presenter, and Mike Bossy won it, and I could hardly carry it out. So that reinforced the fact that I thought they gave me.
God.
He says, oh, no, that was the last year. I got one of those little plaques, too. I said, well, I threw mine in the garbage because I still got mine.
My God.
So that was the Lady Byng trophy.
You know, I've always said, now, I write for several small papers for years now, sports, and I've always said, what you don't read in the papers could fill volumes.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a story that never even made it into the
Well,
paper.
Unless somebody asks, you're not really going to tell the story. You're going to go knock on people's doors and tell stories.
Well, that's just it. The guys that I see out there now, like with Belichick, everybody complains. The guy never says anything. He won't answer his questions. Well, if you ask him a legitimate question, you don't ask him, like, when did you start beating
Well, he's
the
the type of guy that doesn't elaborate much.
Yeah.
So you have to ask him a direct question and try to get a direct answer. And,
I've heard guys ask him what his plans were for beating the team that he's going to play in 3 days.
What are you going to do?
Yeah. I mean, did the Japanese call us on December 6th?
Yeah, exactly. We're coming.
But unbelievable. There's so many guys that I wanted to ask you about. Guys that you did play with. And
I was fortunate. A lot of great teams, coaches. Played with Terry O'Reilly and played under Terry O'Reilly as a coach.
Unbelievable. I don't think Terry ever really got his just desserts in the history of the Bruins.
There's a guy that should be in the Hall of Fame because Terry brought it every night. You know, some of the tough guys, you know, you do the job for a few years, and then you get tired of it, and then you try to become a goal scorer. You just can't do it anymore because it is a brutal job. But Terry did it year after year after year, and even as he was getting older and he had injuries and he was hurting, you know, the Bruins had Al Secord, and then they traded him. And Al was going to take some of the pressure off of Terry in the physical end of it, and all of a sudden he was gone. So Terry went back, and he knew that was his job. Plus, I think he liked it a little. But, you got to like it if you're going to do it as well as he did it. But he did that job every year of his career, and physically demanding of him. And there should be an area in the Hall of Fame for guys like that. You know, he had over 300 goals in his career. He had 600, 700 points. You know, you call him probably the first power forward. I mean, he might laugh at that, but because he, you know, as he self-proclaimed, he could hardly skate when he came up. And here's another guy that was always the last guy off the ice. Hard worker.
You know, Ray Bork got beat up year after year after year after year, and there was no Terry O'Reilly on the team, you know, to extract
well, after maybe in the 90s, you know, it was a different style of hockey, but Ray could handle himself pretty well. The thing with Ray is that he played so many minutes that, you know, to play that long and all those minutes, he had to be in great shape. And if you look at the old pictures of him, he was a lot thinner and a lot smaller. And into the 90s, they really got into the weights and the training and the off-season training. And that's really, you know, helped him last those 10 years through the 90s till he finally won the Cup. And I'm so glad he did.
You know, one of the classiest maneuvers I ever saw in professional sports, not just hockey, was the night that he took off his number 7.
Oh, yeah. That was
and
that
had the 77 underneath it.
Yeah, and we didn't know.
I heard that. I figured it was orchestrated.
And it was kind of I wouldn't say last minute, but I think it was decided that day. It wasn't last minute. And Harry knew, and Ray knew, and maybe one other person knew, but none of the guys on the bench knew. It was that well-kept secret. And Espo, obviously, by the look on his face, he didn't know.
Oh, yeah.
You know. And well-deserved.
Absolutely.
I mean, well-deserved. It was a class move by Ray. And everybody came away better for it.
And there are some guys in sports and other teams that would not give up their number.
Right.
You know? Right. So, but
Espo should have been up there. The number 7 should have been up there. Ray recognized that.
Absolutely. Good classy move.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we were talking about injuries a couple of minutes ago. There was, of course, Normand Leveillé. And I feel that serious injury as a rookie to Gordy Kluzak, you know.
Well, it robbed Kluz of many great years because you know he was the number 1 pick in the draft that year, and when he came up, the trouble is he played in the smallest building in the league. He was 6'5", rangy defenseman, and he played in a rink that didn't have any corners. You know? And the sad thing is he got hurt in an exhibition game in Portland, Maine. It wasn't even in Boston Garden. It was just somebody took him low, but he worked hard. I mean, I think he played for another 9 years, but not at 100%. And each year, as the leg got worse or more injuries happened, it just makes it weaker. And he unfortunately can't skate today. It hurts too much, and he got water on the knee, and so he doesn't play on the alumni team. We miss him.
Yeah,
I'm only kidding, Gordy. I had to say that.
You know, getting back to Terry O'Reilly, I just remembered as we're moving to another subject. I remembered Terry's rookie year, and Frank Mahovlich laid into him a son. I
remember seeing that because you know the Big M was my boyhood idol in Toronto.
Who was
the Big M? Mahovlich. You're talking about the fight, yeah. And Mahovlich never fought.
Terry kneeled on his chest and bounced back.
I think he let up on him because of who he was, but Terry was pretty mad at him for some reason. I'm not sure what happened, but yeah, Terry and Frank wasn't the type that fought, you know. And now he's a member of Parliament in Canada.
I heard about that.
Yeah.
Isn't that something? A hockey player being the
A member of Parliament.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're pretty well respected up there.
Oh yeah.
The Montreal guys.
Montreal and Toronto players. I mean,
Yep.
honestly, it is. You go up there, and those guys are treated like gods up there, and rightfully so. I mean, that's where it started. That's Canada claims it's their game, and they're not going to let go of it. And Toronto is so passionate because you got the English in Toronto, you got the French in Montreal, and forever they're always going to be hitting heads.
Yep.
You think there's a rivalry between Boston and Toronto? You used to see a Toronto-Montreal game.
I can imagine.
In either city.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's nasty.
Well, for years, I guess there it was almost like territorial draft picks. Montreal would.
Montreal owned
draft,
any
and they owned
French, I
everybody.
believe, any French-born player in the province for years until the universal draft came in 1970. So the problem was Guy Lafleur. What happens? They didn't own his rights anymore. So what they did was they traded 5 players to the California Golden Seals, who had the #1 pick for Lafleur, or he would have been a Golden Seal.
Wow.
That was one of the biggest steals in history.
I guess it was.
Would have been wearing yellow skates.
Good God. Yellow skates. You know, talking, of course, around here we all say Bobby Orr is the greatest hockey player ever, and not many people can dispute it. But then there's Gordie Howe to contend with, and of course, back in the old days, Rocket Richard. You know, what's your take on those 3 guys? Or maybe
I never played with Rocket.
But
and I played against Gordie when he was 50. But the way I look at it is, Gordie was great in a lot of ways, and he's one of the toughest, dirtiest players to ever play the game, and put up great numbers and had a long longevity. Played all those years. Rocket was a fiery, passionate player, and the type of guy that you probably want on any team. But Bobby had it all. He had fire. He played the game at 100% every shift, game in, game out. Nobody could skate better than Bobby Orr.
Yep.
And you even look at guys today. There's not many guys that could skate better than Bobby Orr. And Bobby could do it all, and he could do it at full speed, and did it every night. And that's why I think he's the greatest of them all. Gretzky, again, but Gretzky didn't play with the fire and great scorer. And he had great talent, and he knew how to hide out there. Had a deceptive shot, one of the best in the league, best backhand in the league. He had multi-talents, but he didn't necessarily have the fire and the tenacity or the size and just the way Bobby played the game and everything that he did. He did it all. He could do everything.
Yep.
Where most of those other guys could do 9 out of 10 things, Bobby could do 10 out of 10.
Isn't it fitting that one of the greatest sports pitches in the history of any sport is when he made that goal and was flying through the air? We watched that play develop. Turk Sanderson was behind the line, and the give and go.
Who's the other forward that's on the ice?
Okay, who would have been the other forward on the ice? I quit. Who?
Wayne Swoop Carlton.
Swoop Carlton.
Yeah, remember that name?
Do I ever? I remember the season when, and they may have set the record. They had like 12 guys to score 20 goals or more. And the last game of the year, Swoop had 19 goals. And they fed him, and finally he got it, and there was, huge celebration.
Well, our team in '78 still holds the record for
is that it?
11 20-goal scores.
Okay, then
we hold the record.
Here, he was the 10th.
Yeah. We were fortunate enough. And it's still an NHL record today.
Yep. It's too bad not enough people know about those things, the records, the accomplishments, anything.
People that are old enough, like us, to remember, they know because they were around and they remember those teams.
They don't do it nowadays. I mean, so many guys, even some of the girls who are into sports, will say, "Oh, that, 89, that's before my time.
Oh,
that's ancient history." Jesus
well, I
Christ.
look at it myself. I mean, you think I knew everything about the NHL and players, but there was only 6 teams in those days. So I knew everybody. Now the guys playing today, a lot of them don't even know who we are. We played for the Bruins. They're playing for the Bruins. You think they know the history. But, that was over 20 years ago. And I was thinking, when I came in the league in 73, 75, I really didn't know the guys that played in 55. That seems so long ago, 1955 to 75. Well, 1985 to 2005, 2010 is a whole light year ago. So I don't blame those guys for not really knowing us or what we did.
You should know some of the stories.
You know, that's ancient history.
One of the greatest stories that I ever heard, and I remember when I was a little kid, you know, reading about it. Of course, there wasn't television back then, you know, but I think it was around 1950, 51, where Rocket Richard, playing in Boston, took about 18 stitches. They halted the game for 20 minutes. Then he came back in all taped up and everything and scored 2 goals and won the game.
Oh, I don't doubt that, but he wasn't the only player that ever did that.
Oh, I understand.
The great story about him was when he got suspended in the playoffs and they rioted in Montreal and they burned cars. And he had to go on the radio to ask the people to stop rioting or they couldn't get the series started.
So you do remember those
Oh, there's some great history, like you said, but a lot of people don't know. But you just got to go and read up on it. It's it's the oldest professional league in North America.
Yeah.
Of the 4 major sports.
Yeah.
Baseball's close, I think, but it's close.
But you know, Terry O'Reilly is one of the guys. But like Brad Park, we got to talk about Brad Park.
Well, I was fortunate enough. I played with Brad in New York, and then I followed him up to Boston and played many years here. Brad was fantastic. We're still great friends, and he plays on the alumni team with the guys with 2 new knees. Just had both his knees on. I remember reading a story in his last year. It says his knees were about the same condition as Bobby's was when he left the Bruins. Oh yeah. Brad was probably. I don't see how he could have been in as much pain as Bobby was in. But as far as strength, Brad figured out a way how to cut the ice off. He was brilliant like that. You know, he wouldn't make the rushes that he used to make, and he'd just play a smart game. But you know, he'd be back on that defense with that slap shot, and he'd be scoring those goals. But he didn't have the speed or the dexterity that he once had. But he figured out how to play the game, and he got the most out of it. He played for a long time. Yeah. If it wasn't for Bobby, in those days, he would have been the #1 defenseman.
Can you imagine there were about 15, 18 games that Bobby and Park played together?
I know.
The same team.
Well, when I was coming in '76, that I was hoping I'd play with Brad and Bobby together, and unfortunately that didn't happen.
Yeah, that's a shame. But, you played on the New York on the Rangers team with Espo for what? 15, 20
he
games?
came over in like November of '75, and then I'm not sure when they put me with him, but I did play right wing with Espo, so that was a great thrill to play on the same line as the great Esposito. And but I could never play with Jean Rattel in New York because Rod Gilbert was always his
I was going
right
to ask you
winger.
that one, yeah.
So then when Rod came, Ratty came to Boston, and then I got traded here the next year. The very first game, they put me on a line with Jean Rattel, and I think Chief was the left winger, and I got a hat trick. My first game was a Bruins, playing with Jean Rattel.
I remember that one.
You see what I could have done if they put me with him in New York?
Yeah, that's something else. But you know, I think that we're running low on our first segment. How much time do we have over there?
Time to wrap it up. We're halfway.
Okay, why don't we take a break and we come back? You know, I want to ask you about this new hockey league that you're starting, the 3-on-3
hockey
hockey
league. Tell you a little bit about that.
That's something else. And let's bring Rob Bagley on after we take this break, and you guys can tell us something about this new hockey league.
Sounds good.
We'll be back in a minute, guys.
Take out meals for just $12.99. Call them.
Sherry Pearson. You are the sole surviving heir of the King of Montanopolis, and you are now worth $45 million.
I'm rich. It can't be real.
Of course it's not real. Come on. Having money isn't about luck. Like that takeout meal. Cook at home instead, you can save thousands a year. Feed me. Feed the pig.
Funding for this public access station is made possible by a franchise agreement between the City of Medford and your cable service provider. Funding for TV3 is also provided by affiliate memberships, local sponsors, and contributions by cable viewers like you. To become a sponsor and support TV3 Medford, call us at 781-395-5993. Thank you for supporting your public access station.
Welcome back to Real Grass and Real Heroes. I'm your host, Jim Tuberosa. I'm here with Rick Middleton. And Rick, I know you're into a new endeavor with this great 3-on-3 hockey league, and you got one of your mainstays here. I want to introduce Rob Bagley. And Rob Bagley, God, I first met Rob Bagley 16 years ago, and I watched him skate. I said, this kid belongs with the Bruins. But whatever happened along the way, you didn't do it.
Never got a shot. Never got a shot, you know.
Now, I know your grandfather was a big-time sports guy from East Boston, you know, Al Festa. And was your grandfather around to encourage you to play hockey or anything like that?
Yeah, we used to watch all the old Bruins games together. Yeah. And, you know, I didn't play a lot of organized hockey growing up. I was a pond skater, you know, so the guys that played organized would come in and we'd play out in the ponds. And I talked to my grandfather about it. He said, just beat him up. And that's what I did.
Yeah.
So, you know, if they were going to skate around me,
a lot of guys made the NHL just beating guys up.
They were going to get thrown into the woods, you know.
Well,
and so
as a little kid, I grew up in East Boston, and your grandfather was one of the great baseball player. Yeah. And, of course, later years as a great sports announcer. Yep. But sometime before you go, you'll have to give us a quick imitation of your grandfather.
Oh, boy.
But Rick, tell us about this new league you got. I love the concept, 3-on-3.
Well, the reason we went to 3-on-3 is it's basically half a rink. It's 100 by 52. It's in Peabody, Route 1 South, in the Namco Plaza, just before that large workout place, Latitudes. And how we came up with the idea was it's becoming a fashion. There's a rink in North Andover that's a smaller rink, but a little too small for 3-on-3. But this is 100 by 52 with player benches, and we thought we could do an adult league. Adults, when they play in leagues, usually play during the week because they can't get any weekend ice because that's when the kids are playing. So they got to play at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday night. So what this does, the kids practice during the week here at the Pro Skills Training Center, but the weekend ice is open because the kids are playing games all weekend. So now we have ice time Saturday mornings, and if we fill up as we're planning on doing, we're going to go to Sundays also. But the game is, I say it's twice as much fun in half the time because the games are 16-minute, 3 16-minute running time periods. And we have netting around the whole ice, so basically there's not going to be any whistles. It's a great workout. We've tried it. Rob has tried it. There's only 6 to 9 players on a team, depending on how many you want on your team, and a goalie. And you just keep moving like pond hockey, and it's a workout, right, Rob?
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. It just keeps going. It just, you know, you're just constantly moving. You look at the smaller ice surface and you figure, okay, this is going to be a cakewalk. Next thing you know, you're up, and it's a phenomenal workout.
Everything is faster. You have to have a little touch with the hands. You got to have a little breakaway speed. And the people that love it are the goalies because they get so many shots and so much action in a small period of time. And there's no line changes because you can't take all 3 guys off the ice at once. You can only change 1 guy at a time because there's no whistles.
Wow, that's great. Really, I mean, is there such a thing as
unless
icing?
somebody gets hurt, but we're going to be on a strict time
penalties.
There's no offsides. The only rule I instituted is a checkup rule, which means once a puck goes in the net or the goalie saves it, the players on the offensive team have to come back out over the blue line, which is only about 10 feet away. Yep. So in order to get on side again and give the goalie a chance to retrieve the puck in the net or move it, they got to come back out. But once they come out of the blue line, they can go back in. The game's live again. So we want to keep the speed going. We don't want guys pacing themselves, standing around. It's all about go, 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 30, 45 seconds, a minute tops, and you're off. The next guy goes on. And in 48 minutes, it'll be a great workout.
Are there any penalties?
We're going to institute some penalties just for blatant, like haul the guy down on a breakaway. It's a no-check league, so if somebody runs somebody from behind, but no penalties in the box. It's just penalty shots. There's no fighting in the league. You get one chance. If you do it twice, you're out of the league.
Well, that's great.
This is just to have fun. This isn't, this isn't play 36 weeks to find out the same team wins it. We're going to start off with 12-week seasons. So if you didn't win it in those 12 weeks, you get another 12 weeks to do it.
I'll tell you, it sounds like a great spectator sport. You're going to have spectators?
Well, anybody's allowed to come out and play, and we're starting it this January 8th, this Saturday. At I believe we have ice time starting at 9 o'clock in the morning and 10:10, and we're going to run, depending on how many people come over, we're going to run consecutive games. And anybody can come. It's $20 to play, and if they like it, they can sign up for the league. So come on down to the Pro Skills Training Center. It's in the NAMCO Center Mall, or Plaza, if you will, on Route 1 South. It's hard to see because it's behind the plaza. You come over on Saturday morning, and you want to get on the ice, so just sign up, and we'll put you on there and try your hand at 3-on-3.
The spectators...
Anybody over 18, it's adult.
Spectators get to walk in and watch for free.
Absolutely. There's a lobby there. They can watch them and not get cold. But it's only 100 by 52, so it's a very small arena. You'll be able to see the ice, no problem.
This sounds great. This sounds great. By the way, do we have... we got a shot to put this on the screen?
We got it on there. That's our website right there.
Oh, that's the website.
Yeah, www.weekendwarrior.com.
Sure.
And people can go on the website and check out information on it. They can download the form to fill out. And if they have some questions, they can email me, and I'd be happy to answer the questions that they have. Or better off, just come down Saturday morning and bring your equipment.
Yep.
That's great.
Right. We'll put them on the ice.
Rob's been there. We've done it a couple of times just to test it out.
Just to see how
and see if it works for adults. And it really does. So you can really get a good game going, a good sweat, and a lot of fun and a lot of goals. And that's what it's all about, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, the goalies like it. They get a lot of shots.
Except when they go in.
Except when they go in.
Yeah.
I put a couple more in than him, though.
Rick, I know that you're president of the Bruins Alumni Association. Are any of the former Bruins involved at all?
Well, I thought Reggie Lemelin lives in Peabody, so he's interested in coming down. Brad Parks in Linfield. I haven't got them down there yet because we play alumni games pretty much every weekend from October through April.
No kidding.
So I may even ref some. I'm not necessarily going to play every weekend. I may be the ref. And by the way, the ref's off the ice. The ref and the timer and the scorekeeper are all the same people. So you're not going to have any refs on the ice. They're going to be off the ice, calling the game, working the clock. And, yeah, some of the guys hopefully will come down. But we play pretty much every Saturday afternoon or night from now till April. So I may be skating a couple times a day. But
how'd you come up with the idea for this?
Well, through friends of mine, Dave McCarthy really gave me the idea because he was one of the fellows that were building this rink, and it just got finished a couple weeks ago. So this is brand new. They're renting the ice out to youth hockey groups during the week. And he said, we got all this ice time on the weekends. Why, would you be interested in doing a 3-on-3 league? Put your name on it to attract players to come in. And I said, yeah, I think it's a great idea. I went down and I saw the rink before there was even ice in. I said, I don't know if this is going to be big enough, with 6 adults out there moving and 2 goalies. But once the ice got in and once we got on it, it's tight.
Yeah.
It's tight because you don't have a lot of room to move, but there is enough room. It makes it a fun game.
It's really like a pro game. I mean, because you have, the play's right on top of you. So you're going to move the puck. You can't Bobby Orr it, go one end to, you got to pass the puck. You got to skate. You got to get open.
And you can't stand around because that puck, because there's no offsides, you can go from one end to the other, boom, into the net before you know it.
Yeah.
So you always got to be ready because that puck moves. You get the habit if the goalie saves it, you stand there and you wait for him to move. Well, you don't want to stand there because once he moves it, they shoot it down, they get a shot on net. All takes place in 3 seconds.
As I'm envisioning all this, I get the wheels turning in my head. I can picture it, and you probably already have thought of this, but have you thought about starting leagues in the same thing in other cities, like, I don't know, Framingham, Springfield, Providence, and then forming a league?
We would love to do that, but there's not that many of these smaller rinks around the area right now. As I said, there's one in North Andover, but it's even smaller than 100 by 52. I think the 100 by 52 is a good size. I'd like to see it about 120 by 60, I think would be perfect. But apparently there's one in Methuen, Mass, that's possibly opening up, so we'll go to them. You could play it on a big rink, but and you could use those plastic boards to downsize it. I've done that with kids hockey, but no, there's something about having the benches right there and the closed-in rink and the lack of movement because the rink isn't that wide. That it really makes it competitive, I think. And so we'll see if other rinks are going to pop up. I hope they do, and we'll be there if they want our league to come in. But this is the first prototype. and we're trying to get it off the ground here, and I think it'll be successful.
You know, this seems like a perfect venue for guys that are in, like Rob. I think, Rob, you're in your late 30s now, and
Wow.
Well, no, I'm just saying, to my mind, from when I watched you 16 years ago, you should have been playing pro hockey at some point, and I'm sure there's tons of other guys, so this would seem a perfect thing for some guy that never really get into it, but always thought
we're hoping in a perfect world we're going to have 3 age groups. We're going to have 18 to 34, 35 to 49, and 50 and up. But to start, we're, you know, as guys come in, we'll have 2 age groups, probably 34 and under and 35 and older to start. And then if we can divide up the talent levels, because, you know, everybody wants to play at their level that they're happy with and competitive with, because it's more fun. So eventually, well, we're gonna work on the parity, and we want the guys to have fun, and eventually it'll be their own age groups. We won't be able to play because I'm a little older than you, so you might be in a different age group than me. But I'm looking forward to that 50 and over age group.
Well, you're over 50?
57, yeah.
Oh, my God.
He skates like he's 40. And I'm not. You got to remember, this was our boy. You know, I don't know how much time we have, but one thing I wanted to mention is, you know, this was our Bobby Orr, Rick Middleton. You know, because I was a little, you know, I was a little young to really appreciate Bobby Orr. I watched the highlight films. I remember Dad took me to a Bruins game and says, "That's Bobby Orr down there," and I can remember watching. But you know, as I got to appreciate hockey, you know, when I was as a teenager, you know, Rick Middleton was the highlight film guy. You know, Fred Cusick, Rick Middleton. You know, so to be playing with him and to, you know, I'm learning a lot from him about the game and stuff like that. But you know, it definitely. You know, to be with the old Bruins and doing this is a lot of fun, and these guys are just...
Well, I think once we get this up and running, like I said, I think Brad and maybe Terry, and because Terry plays 3 days a week. I mean, a lot of people don't know.
Is that right?
Yeah, he's at
We're going to have him on the show,
Hockeytown.
Rob. You got to bring Terry down.
Yeah, Terry would come down. He'd be happy to do it. But these guys are still, you know, in love with the game so much that, you know, and playing on that smaller rink, it's fast, but it's a lot less grueling than going up and down, especially if you got bad knees and a bad back and whatever. And you don't have to stay on more than 30, 45 seconds. So,
you know, you just mentioned Bobby. You know, Bobby. I've been involved in running several fundraising events for charities through the years. Bobby never says no. Turns up at all of them. And don't forget, he came. I ran a time about 6 months before Johnny Mose died. I ran a time for him at the World Trade Center, and that's where Bobby came. And one of the people there had his 12, 13-year-old son, and said, "Do you think Bobby would autograph his stick for him?" I said, "Sure." When I brought him up, the kid stood there and he couldn't move, and he couldn't talk, couldn't say anything. He just stared at Bobby.
Well, Bobby transcends age groups. Everybody knows who Bobby Orr is, and you're right. Bobby never denies anyone an autograph. He'll stay there until everybody gets one.
Bobby handled it so well with this kid, and the kid was totally awestruck. And he wasn't a 6, 7-year-old.
Kids today are still awestruck when they meet him.
What a great guy.
And parents.
You know, talk about Terry O'Reilly. I think when he was coaching, I don't know where the game was, but they were on the road, and I guess there was a car came and blocked the bus. You probably know this. It was in Hartford. Blocked the bus, and they wouldn't move, and they gave them...
The story was, I believe it was a playoff game, and we lost. And the ramp out of the Hartford arena was very tight to get a bus up and get out. And there was an older car. I won't call it what it really was. It was an older car, and it was illegally parked. And it was sticking out enough that the bus couldn't make the turn. And Terry was in just enough of a bad mood from losing that he got out and asked the bus driver to open it up. And I think he got a crowbar. I'm not really sure. Because I was in the back of the bus where I usually was. And got a little knock, and I believe some glass was broken. I'm not really sure. And a bunch of guys got off and just moved the car so we could get the bus out. That's all. But he got a call about it.
That was it. But
had to pay a fine or something.
the guts of I don't know. I was going to say the guts of a burglar, but that's even more than that. It was like he always knew.
Well, he didn't do it maliciously. He just did it just to get the buzz out, and was happy to pay any damages. So.
Yeah,
that's all I remember about that story. And the other one was in the famous one in New York, going over in the stands.
Oh yeah,
you know,
Millbury jumped in the stands.
No, well, Millbury. The true story about that was Esposito had a breakaway with 5 seconds to go. And he stopped Espo. Espo broke his stick on the crossbar, and I jumped over the boards. We won by a goal. Tapped Cheesy. Cheesy and I and Mike Millbury were walking to the dressing room. It's a long walk. By the time we got there, we turn around, we hear the fans, and there's nobody coming. So I don't think Cheesy ran, but myself and Mike ran back out. And by the time we got back in there, in the stands, we didn't even go on the ice. We walked up in the stands. Mike had no idea what happened. He just saw something happen. So Mike kept running up the stairs, and the guy had the legs in the air, and Mike took the guy's shoe off and started hitting him. But he had no clue what started it. He just knew something started it. That's the funny thing about it. He did not go over the boards. He went up out of the dressing room with me. But what happened was, what Terry was, and a lot of people don't know this, because the camera never showed it, a guy leaned over the boards and hit Stan Jonathan in the face and took Stan's stick.
Big mistake.
And that's when Terry looked up and saw the guy with the stick. That's when Terry went over, only because he didn't know if he was going to hit one of our players.
Sure.
So he just grabbed the guy and put him down. Then the guy's brother came down to get Terry off his brother. That's when Peter McNabb went over. The guy saw Peter coming, ran up the stairs. And it lasted about 15 seconds. It was all over. That was what.
You know something? The cameraman's giving me the signal. We only got about a minute and a half left. We got another show here. You guys got to come back.
I'd love to. We'll bring Terry next time.
Oh,
he can tell you what's going through his mind.
Absolutely. But anything you want to add? We got 1 minute left. Anything you want to add before we sign off about your league? I love this idea of the
league.
I
appreciate the chance to come down. I heard a lot about you, and it was a great show. And, you know, we like to come back and do it again. And if people would like to see what the 3-on-3 league's all about at the Pro Skills Training Center, there's our website, weekendwarrior.com. Check it out. It's got some information on it, and they can download the form and sign up right away, or they can come down this Saturday at 9 o'clock in the morning to the Pro Skills Center.
Well, I wish you luck on that.
Thank you.
The clock on the wall says I got about 3 seconds. The name of the show is Real Grass, Real Heroes, a look at the golden age of sports in Boston. I want to thank Rick Middleton and Rob Bagley for coming. I hope we have you guys here again. And stay tuned for the next show. Thanks for watching.